Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas Collins, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.
I'm going to spend a couple of minutes today telling you folks, who I'm sure all of you know what Pennington Biomedical is, but I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just on the history of Pennington and what it does. I want to share with you a little bit our model, our business model, since that is the focus of the group, and I'll also spend a few minutes talking about our future vision. It happens that coming from Cleveland and knowing this great man, Dr. Fred Robbins, who was a Cleveland pediatrician. Dr. Robbins won the Nobel Prize in 1954 for the seminal work that he did that led to the discovery of the polio vaccination. And I present this to you today because of the great work that the Rotarians have done in promoting vaccination programs globally to eradicate polio throughout the world. That work was accomplished because of the work of Dr. Robbins at Cleveland and at Case Western. And prior to my appointment at Cleveland Clinic, I'd spent a number of years in Dr. Robbins' building at Case Western in Cleveland. Polio is an infectious disease, and you folks have done tremendous work to help eradicate that. Here in Louisiana, we have a slightly different problem. We have a $10 billion chronic disease burden. These diseases include diabetes, obesity, and Alzheimer's. And they place tremendous burden both on the public and on the state in terms of supporting the health care that's required, and on your businesses in terms of what you pay for health care support. And I would urge you to consider, as you have done with polio, to give some consideration to the promotion and eradication of diabetes and Alzheimer's and related chronic diseases here in Louisiana over the next 10, 15 years. If we could just reduce this by 10%, you can do the math very quickly, we would make a huge dent in terms of our economic balance, but more importantly, in terms of the health and welfare of our people. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes telling you what Pennington Biomedical is. It is a biomedical powerhouse established by Doc Pennington based on the largest gift to an academic institution, $125 million, just 30 years ago. And it is currently the 30th anniversary of Pennington. His one request is written in his memo, and that was that Pennington would become the biggest nutrition research center in the US. In fact, it has become the biggest. It's also become the best. It has become the best in the world. And it's an honor for me to continue the leadership that's been provided to Pennington by folks like George Bray, Claude Bouchard, Steve Hemsfield, and Donna Ryan, Will Cefalu, over the last 30 years. What does Pennington do, and how is it reflected in terms of the work that it's done? It publishes science, it makes discoveries all around the biomedical field, focused primarily on nutrition as it relates to obesity and diabetes and these related chronic diseases that include cardiovascular disease, among others. There have been over 5,000 peer-reviewed articles published out of Pennington. We partner with 300 institutions in 24 countries. But one of the statistics that we're most proud of is the fact that 44,000 participants have passed through the doors of Pennington over the last 30 years in clinical trials. These are unique clinical trials that would not be ordinarily available if you did not come to Pennington. It is unique to the investigators there. These are pilot trials and premier trials landmark trials that have included Look Ahead, the Diabetes Prevention Program, that have gone on to make an impact in terms of setting up the guidelines for treating diabetes and obesity. In addition to that, Pennington has had a hand in literally every obesity and diabetes drug that is on the market today, and that continues as we speak. So, you business folks, you think about this perhaps from a business perspective as opposed to the scientific perspective, but let me share with you our business model. I'd like to emphasize that good health is good business. Good health is your business. It's in your interest, the good health of your employees, and good health is our business. And this is how we work. We think of our scientists as entrepreneurs. And we are supported by the state, by donor support that feeds the cycle of federal grants and private industry. These individuals use and leverage the resources of Pennington to compete for national dollars. When I was being recruited here, I was asked, did I hunt? And I was like, yeah, I think I hunt, but I hunt for grants. And we're pretty successful at getting these grants. And the entrepreneurs and scientists that are employed at Pennington are pretty good hunters too. And they have been very successful in securing the funding that has allowed these clinical trials and these discoveries to take place. This is our budget for the fiscal year of 2017-18. You can see we have an annual budget of $66 million. $17 million comes from state operating appropriations, roughly 25% of our budget. $20 million comes from federal grants, private industry, grants and contracts, and then other includes foundation, auxiliary, and indirect cost recovery. So this is our total. We do see the state operating appropriations as a critical piece of the work that we do, and we're, of course, like all of you, in the midst of sweating it out for a state budget for 2018-19. We believe we're a good investment. This is the amount of money that's been invested by the state over the past 30 years, $257 million. This is the return on investment, $826 million in grants and contracts. Our folks have been very successful. That's been recognized nationally and internationally. And I hope that everybody here appreciates the effort and work that they've done to make this happen. They've brought home to you a significant amount of funding that has led to critical jobs in the economy here, both directly and indirectly. And this graph here is meant to indicate the return to the capital region for every $1 million that has been accrued. 21.4 new jobs created, approximately $700,000 in new household income, and $1.9 million in business sales. What does Pennington do? A lot of what we do is clinical trials, and a big emphasis has been placed on recruiting perhaps some of you folks to these clinical trials so that we can better understand new medicines and new treatments and the triggers that cause these kinds of diseases that we are studying, including diabetes and heart disease. Most of our participants come from the Baton Rouge area, capital area, New Orleans, and the North Shore. But you can see that we have folks coming from all over the state and as far away as Shreveport. One of the areas that we investigate is the effect of nutrition on performance. And this has great implications for our military. So since its inception, Pennington has been working with the military to develop new strategies and nutrition programs that facilitate and maximize performance. So for those of you who have been on the front line, you appreciate the need for good nutrition, the need for energy to be able to perform at your maximum when you are under pressure and under the stress of the conditions of war. We've worked to develop the food rations that we hear a lot about. And this particular one is called the First Strike, and it was developed as part of a high-density calorie bar. It's very light, because as you'll appreciate, you don't need weight when you're carrying that backpack and heading up in the desert. And so we worked hard to figure out the best, the most efficient way to provide nutrition under those kinds of conditions. And so this is one example of the many in which Pennington has contributed to military nutrition. So in coming from Cleveland, I've spent a good number of years developing a research portfolio around obesity, and one of the studies I was able to bring to Pennington is called the LIP study. It's a lifestyle intervention in preparation for pregnancy. So think about it. We have moms who are overweight. They give birth to babies who are overweight. The babies go on to become obese. They develop chronic disease and heart disease. How can we break that cycle? There have been a lot of clinical trials that have attempted to do that and not been successful. Lifestyle intervention is the usual approach, and lifestyle intervention works great for the moms. So the moms who go through these programs are probably the healthiest moms that deliver babies, but the babies still have excess weight. We believe that there's metabolic programming that's occurring based on the diet and the exercise and the lifestyle of the moms prior to pregnancy. And so we're introducing a program now where we can test this hypothesis in an attempt to demonstrate that if we can intervene prior to pregnancy, the outcome in the baby will be a healthier baby. If that proves to be true, and if we can, in fact, develop this intervention successfully, this will change clinical practice. This is just one example of 3 studies that are coming from Cleveland that are potentially high impact, federally funded grants. The second, we spend a lot of time on this bariatric surgery and type 2 diabetes question. Now, many of you may be familiar with bariatric surgery through gastric bypass, through a sleeve gastrectomy where you cut part of the stomach, or through other procedures. There's a number of different procedures that you can use. The goal is to get from here to here. And you can see this, living within this guy is a thin guy. And the goal is to get there. And so we have surgery as an approach, and we have medical therapy as an approach. And our tests have demonstrated that the surgery, so these folks, a lot of them have diabetes. And for the folks who do have diabetes, we find that immediately after the surgery, their diabetes goes away. This is before this guy has gotten to this phenotype. He's not lost any weight yet, but yet the diabetes is gone. So we've discovered that there's something that happens when you change the plumbing, essentially, in the gut, that changes the signaling systems that regulate how your blood sugar is controlled. And our goal now is to find out how that's working. This was a very significant discovery. It was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, which for biomedical science and for medicine in general is like the superstar event. It is your Super Bowl ring. We have published this 3 times now, demonstrating that it is a sustainable effect. It lasts for anything up to, in our hands, 15 years. So we are embarking now here at Pennington to figure out what it is and what is the mechanism that's responsible for that. That has the potential to lead to new treatments for diabetes outside of the need for bariatric surgery. Obviously, we can't do bariatric surgery on every patient who has diabetes or every patient who is obese. But these are strategies that we are developing, and hopefully we will have some new developments to report to you over the next 3 or 4 years. We've also been working on what we call medical foods. And in the asthma area, and I'm sure everybody's family has, friends who have been touched by asthma, And this is an acute condition. It's a respiratory breathing condition. This slide is just meant to illustrate the tissues that are responsible for taking in oxygen. And what we've developed is a food product which is patented and under development now. It will be served as a shake. It can be used, come in a powder. Your kids can put it in their backpack and take it with their lunch. And if they have an acute asthma event, they can take this. We have found that it reverses asthmatic symptoms and it changes the architecture in the lung. This is under investigation at the moment, and we partnered with a major food company to be able to produce this on a mass scale. So this is a good example. This is a federally funded grant from NIH in which we partnered with industry, developed a product that has potential to treat a condition that affects hundreds and thousands of kids in the US. Another example of what we do is illustrated here in our LIFT grant program from LSU. And so obesity is a problem that is regulated to a large extent by overnutrition and underactivity. That's a behavioral component. How can we change behaviors? These kinds of tools and apps are one strategy that has been developed at Pennington to address that problem. And this was developed on the basis of a $50,000 grant through LSU. It has led to, again, a partnership with a major company to develop the product and to market it. And it is leading to a new revenue stream and a growing opportunity for Pennington. What's our future vision? Diabetes has been at the center of Pennington's goals and mission for the past 30 years. We will continue to do that as we expand. We hope to encompass these new observations around obesity and cancer. It was recently reported that up to 14 cancers can be linked to obesity as a causative factor. So the weight gain associated with increased in adiposity or your fat accumulation produces chemicals that drive cancer. We need to understand what those are. Cancers have been treated primarily by focusing on the cancer cells themselves. How do those cancer cells live? They need fuel. So we are tackling the fuel source that drives the cancer cell with the goal of reversing those cancers and providing new treatments. We have opportunities to enhance and expand our nutrition and military performance work. We have opportunities to develop what we call knifeless bariatric surgery. So we don't want everybody to have to go have bariatric surgery, but if we can find that cure that lies within that approach that we've demonstrated, then we can potentially produce that on a greater scale. We have a big program around brain health, and many of you have participated, many folks in Baton Rouge have participated in Love Brains. And the brain health program around Alzheimer's is certainly one of the more fascinating aspects of the work that goes on there. It is an age-related program, and it is one that we will be looking to expand. I referred to women's health a little bit with the pregnancy, and we hope to continue to do that. And finally, we're hoping to push out into the pediatric obesity arena as a new hospital emerges from the ground over on near I-10. I saw it. So as Pennington leaps into the future, we're hoping to translate our discoveries in the laboratory to the bedside, out into the community. And I welcome all of you to join us as we move those discoveries into the health and the welfare, the betterment of the people of Louisiana. Thank you.
We do have time for some questions, so we have microphones on either. Okay.
Yes?
Pennington is an important contributor not only in Baton Rouge, but to our state and to our nation. And given the current budget situation, how can Pennington Biomedical develop more jobs for outstanding biomedical research graduates who want to stay in Louisiana and contribute to the important work that you're doing?
Please repeat the question.
So the question revolves around our budgets, our need for support, and the need to develop good quality jobs for our kids in Louisiana. So building on the reputation of Pennington worldwide. This is one of the things that keeps me awake these nights, the state budget. We're hoping that we'll get a stable budget. That would allow us to sustain the workforce that we currently have. We need some additional resourcing to be able to grow Pennington, to provide the kind of jobs that you're talking about. These are 3- and 4-star jobs. There is a major contribution. This is the sort of information economy that we hear a lot about. You've got a big piece of that at Pennington. In order for those kinds of events to occur, for us to hire new grads from LSU, and either coming from all over, we need some additional funding to be able to develop those jobs. The return is pretty good. Each one of those brings in an additional $630,000 a year to the economy. So we see this as a critical piece. And as I evaluated Pennington before I came here, there have been some substantial budget cuts in Louisiana. It has had implications for education. It has had implications for Pennington. As a consequence of that, there's been a reduction in the workforce. The goal right now, it's been stabilized, but the goal right now is to grow it. In order to right-size Pennington, we have the capacity to recruit 30 or 40 more investigator entrepreneurs. We have that kind of capacity. There's huge return on that. But in order to get that started, we need this fuel that comes in the state appropriations. It's the fuel line that drives the fire. And if that maintains stability, we'll hold ground. But we need a little bit more fuel in that line to be able to drive the jobs. And with those jobs, every one of those guys hires 5 more. And so it's a knock-on effect. It has a huge impact in terms of the overall economy. And on top of that, these are guys who are going to find the next cure for cancer. They're going to find the next cure for diabetes. This is what we should be about.
Hey, Dr. Kirwan. I'm Lauren with the Blue Cross Foundation. So you mentioned that a lot of what Pennington does is clinical trials, and that's what your researchers are focused on. In speaking with researchers in other parts of the state, they've mentioned that they are also interested in doing clinical trials, but they don't locally have the appropriate facilities to do those clinical trials. So my 3-part question is this. Are researchers who are not employed with Pennington allowed to access and utilize Pennington's facilities to do research? If so, what does that look like? And if not, do they have access to other facilities in the state to do that research?
Okay, this is a question that relates to investigators all over the state who hear that Pennington is doing these clinical trials. They want to do clinical trials. How can they be part of all of that? There's several different ways to answer. The shortest answer I could give you is that we have recently secured a federal grant, $20 million grant. Actually, it was the renewal of a $20 million grant. So it's $40 million of investment that has been put into a program called LCATS, Louisiana Clinical Translational Services. This is a program that is statewide. It includes every academic, and I'm sure that if you want to talk to your folks, tell them about LCATS, because this is a program that provides the kind of infrastructure that they need to do these clinical trials. The focus is on health disparities, so it should resonate all over the state, especially north of the line. And I think that we have great participation from the folks in Shreveport, and it's quite successful. It is in its infancy. It's a program that I think can contribute. And the other way is for these folks to collaborate with investigators at Pennington, and we welcome that. And so the more collaboration, the better the project. The more ideas, the better the results. And we're striving to do that. And we do have partnerships with folks in New Orleans and with folks in Shreveport. And I believe there have been studies done in parishes in pretty much every parish in the state. But from an investigator's point of view, our doors are open. Yep. Sorry, there was a lady here.
Two questions. One, are you aware of any specific studies that are looking at the relationship between diabetes and Alzheimer's? And two, of that $208 million in income that you talked about in grants and development, do you know the percentage that is from patents and developments at Pennington?
I can't give you the breakdown. Let me go back to this two-part question. One is, are there any trials related to diabetes and Alzheimer's? We don't have a specific clinical trial that's running at Pennington at the moment that it has linked those two. We have Alzheimer's trials, we have diabetes trials. There are clinical trials out there. We need more investigators to be able to go after them, to bring those to Louisiana. And that opportunity is there, but we just don't have enough people to be able to do it. The second part of your question was percent. I can't give you the percent, but I do know that in the time I've been here, 2018, there have been 9 patents filed from Pennington. Now, keep in mind that the whole patent law has changed over the last 5-6 years, and so how these patents actually pan out and how they develop into final successful revenue streams remains to be seen. But there have been 9 patents filed this year. The hope would be that they would turn into a revenue stream. I think a better strategy for Pennington is not to think about patenting things, because a lot of patents sit and gather dust on shelves, but to license. If you partner and license, then you have an immediate cash flow, and you're moving the product to market much faster. And so we have been developing those licensing opportunities, and the Lyft example was one of those. That asthma product is another example of a licensing agreement with the company. Yes? I missed the critical word.
What do you call how do you pay
For okay, so the question is, how do you get involved in a trial, I guess, at Pennington?
How do you get information into the trial to help you?
So how do we gather the research? I'm not getting your question. I'm so sorry.
How do you communicate results?
How do we communicate? Oh, sorry. I got it. So we have several sources. We do have a web page. Obviously, things go out through the web page. But the primary mechanism for the scientists at Pennington is to publish these in peer-reviewed journals like the New England Journal of Medicine. That's how that information gets out to the field. How does it get out to the people of Louisiana? We do that through our promotions and our newsletters. We have a communications office that is responsible for that, and we share that information as it comes. So a lot of it is web-based, a lot of it goes out through that source, and we do have some mailings through newsletters. And we try to get on the Advocate when we can. All right.
Thank you so much.
Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas Collins, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.